Okay, Andy, that was the tape that Jere was on Joan Rivers' show, and of course he reiterated there that he was fired 8 times by Leona.
That's a record, I might add.
That is a record. I was going to say, you must hold the record of being fired and being fired.
Okay, he was saying well, using his terms, the other fellow, he said she could be a vicious little lady.
She could, from time to time.
In the studio, I was talking to you earlier, and I told you that I heard a talk show in Philly yesterday, and the famous talk show host, Irv Homer, everybody's heard about him. Now, he was jumping on the government. He said the prosecution of Leona Helmsley is a government railroad job. The prosecutors are lying through their teeth, and he was going on and on. Now, could you care to comment on that?
Well, I've never had the pleasure of meeting her, but I can tell you I have had the pleasure of meeting Leona, and I was there when it happened. So if Herb would like to debate the issue, I'll be glad to come back another evening, and we'll be happy to do that.
That's interesting.
That might be a very good show.
But I think the debate's already been, it's been completed. The debate was before the United States District Court.
Yes.
It then went to the United States Court of Appeals. It then went to the United States Supreme Court, and then back to the United States District Court for the Second Circuit. And in every single case, Mrs. Helmsley lost the debate. So perhaps Irv ought to do some homework before he makes those kind of comments.
Okay, now you were subpoenaed into court.
That's correct.
You had to testify. Was there any...
Yes, I did testify.
One line of testimony they were hitting you on, or what did they...
They were curious as to the origin or the phony invoices for work that was done on the hall. For example, I can recall one particular instance. The question was asked, do you recognize this bill? And I was shown a bill for, I can't tell you the dollar amount. It could have been $1,000 or $100,000. I don't recall now. But it was for granite work on the rear facade of the Harley Hotel, which is on 42nd and 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. And the guy asked me if the bill was authentic, and I said, no, it was not. I recognized the quantities of being the same quantities we used at the mansion in Greenwich, number one. But I said, more than that, I'm certain, because there is no granite on that facade of that hotel. It's limestone on the back, totally limestone. So they were stacks of invoices, and they questioned me probably on about 700 documents, all of which were false. Now, 2 other gentlemen that did sign the invoices were indicted, convicted, and incarcerated, Joe LeCarry and Frank Turco. They are both since out of prison and in the federal probation program.
Was this part of her life or buildings and so on? Was this is what they really got her on tax evasion on? Is that what we're saying?
Well, a number of charges. There were a number of counts of tax evasion, a number of counts of conspiracy, a number of counts of fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud. There were 3 counts, actually count 47, 3 instances of extortion. She was found innocent on the charges of extortion, even though she did extort that $10,000 with me. Yeah. It did not stick. The extortion charge stemmed largely from the $10,000 that I was forced to contribute, and with liquor and other salesmen that were forced to kick back.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I think
that all is a matter of record.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're getting in a little deeper here, so get your questions ready for our guests. Okay, hello, you're on the air. Hello. Hello.
Oh, hi, Andy. Hello, great show.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask the gentleman if indeed we know that she also had these expensive hotels and motels and apartments. I was wondering if did she also run houses for low income, tenant type homes, and if so, I heard stories that she treated those people exceptionally terrible. Is that a fact or is that just myth? And I'll just wait to hear the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Okay, well, there are a lot of facts. Number one, the Helmsley Empire encompassed hundreds, perhaps thousands of buildings throughout the United States. The principal holdings being Manhattan, and the gem of the flagship of the fleet being the Empire State Building, which Mr. Helmsley owns today. They had, when I was there, I don't know what the count is now, approximately 130,000 residential apartment units throughout the United States.
130,000?
130,000. In one complex alone at Parkchester, which is on Tremont Avenue in the Bronx, New York, there are 12,940 units. The exact same complex, built on the same plan by Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, and later sold to Mr. Helmsley, is located near Golden State Park in San Francisco. and it has 13,000 apartment units. So the tenants were treated according to the market. The buildings were always maintained to the extent that they could be, based on the profitability of the various project. The hotels was a very small part of our business. The media made that into the queen of Maine and the hotel queen. The hotels was something for Mrs. Helmsley to do, to occupy her time so that we could sort of do business, and it was not a big portion of the business, I'll put it that way.
Oh, boy.
It was the smallest subsidiary that we owned was Helmsley Hotels. When I say we owned, I was not a stockholder.
Yeah, but you were part of the business. Why don't I get back to that further? We have a phone call.
Okay. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, Andy and Bill.
Yes, sir. How are you? You have a question for our guest?
Yes, I do. Jere, as you well know, the income tax exists largely on bluff. And this April 15th of Ms. Helmsley going to jail and whatnot was worth more publicity than she could have ever owed in taxes. She was also quoted as saying that only little people pay taxes. And, of course, the media made a big to-do about her making that statement. But, in fact, anyone who's ever read the IRS code, very few people have, of course, because it's terrible reading. But if you read the code, you can see the system is set up to protect people in her financial class, and that she was only telling the truth. The fact that she may have made some procedural errors or taken somewhat advantage. If you go to any big hotel or any wealthy industry in the country, and you'll find this kind of abuse is rampant. She was picked, I believe, for her publicity value, and at a crucial moment, her otherwise loyal employees, who are loyal apparently to their own paychecks, turned on her like a wolf pack. What do you have to say about that, Mr. McCarthy? Thank you. Good night.
Okay, thank you for your call. Well, remember all that question?
Her loyal employees that turned on her in a wolf pack, I'm not so sure that's accurate. Most of the employees that I know that testified in those proceedings testified, including myself, by virtue of subpoena. Number two, as the individual stated, some technical defects or some misstatement in her taxes is quite different from fraud. This was a deliberate scheme set up to defeat the government and to defraud the government of tax money. Now, he's talking about the balance of the taxpayers. I might suggest to the caller that she evaded $1.2 million in taxes. That money, had it gone undetected, comes out of the pockets of the rest of us. So the government's claim is clearly documented. The evidence, I have the opinion of the appellate court here, I can quote from it. The evidence is overwhelming. And in appeal after appeal after appeal, Mrs. Helmsley never once said there was an insufficiency of evidence. She always used technical defects in the Constitution and in the law to make her claim. But never did she say that she wasn't guilty, and never did she say that there wasn't sufficient evidence.
Okay, did she do this, or did her accountants do this? Was she smart enough to defraud the government of all these taxes?
Well, she's a very bright lady.
That's what I mean.
Very bright
Was
lady.
she actually responsible for this, or?
The taxpayer that signs a tax return is responsible, is my understanding of the law. The gentleman is correct. I've never read the tax code. But if he's suggesting the taxes are not real, gee, I don't know what I sent them to check for yesterday.
Oh, you got caught too, didn't you?
It was April 15th.
That's a terrible time of the year.
I am certain there is some symbolism in the fact that she was ordered to be incarcerated on April 15th. What we also have to understand, I think, is that she was convicted, or indicted rather, for the offenses 4 years ago. It's taken 2 years of investigation, plus 4 years of prosecution, largely at the taxpayer's expense, to put her in there. If it happens to be April 15th and they want to get some publicity mileage out of it, I think they're entitled, because they certainly paid the freight for it.
Hey, what about a lady of her stature usually goes to a plush hotel prison? She could go to a plush prison. Is that her fault?
Well, you know, you hear frequently, I hear people making the remark, well, that's a country club. I happen to be in the prison building business, and my firm, Morse Diesel, has probably built as many federal prisons, including the things called country clubs.
Country club.
But I can tell you, they're not like any country club I ever belonged to.
Right.
When those doors slam shut, and that metal hits that metal at night, and the echo through that concrete building penetrates your inner ear, you know there's no caddy coming. You're not on the third tee. That is not a country club.
You're not going out for the night, right?
That's correct.
So that's just a false label I want to put on it.
Some are a little better than others. The one that she went to, is not very nice, I'm told. I've not been there. The one that she was going to be incarcerated at initially was the Federal Correctional Institute in Danbury, Connecticut. And while it's newer and cleaner, it's not a country club, not by any standard that I know.
As I understand, your company built that
Part of the prison, that's correct.
part of that prison.
That's right.
Okay. I guess we asked you how. Did we ever ask you how long? Wait, we have a phone call.